Welcome to Girl Dad, the podcast, the essential podcast for fathers navigating the complex but rewarding journey of raising daughters. I'm your host, Madeline Anderson, and I'm thrilled to bring you honest conversations with dads and daughters, sharing heartfelt stories, actionable advice, and real daughter perspectives that will help you be the best girl dad you can be. Carmine, welcome to Girl Dad, the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I know you've been working on this for a while, and it's a really good cause, and I'm just happy to be a part of it.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, I'm really excited to have you on, and I would love to just kick things off by you introducing yourself. Maybe tell us a little bit about what you do, where you're from, and a bit about your family.
Yeah, absolutely. So, my name's Carmine. I've just moved to Colorado from from New Hampshire. My parents just moved to New Hampshire a little bit ago, but we just moved to Colorado from Nashville. We were there for about 6 years. Grew up in Connecticut, and my two sisters are still in Connecticut. One has two daughters and a son, and they're raising some incredible children. And then my other sister is a teacher.
Amazing. And then it's you, your wife, and your daughter
Yes.
in Denver area. Okay, so
Yep.
exciting. So I know Carmine because he is one of my husband's best friends, and he was actually just a groomsman in our wedding. And anytime he calls my husband Max and they're catching up, and I'm in the room, I hear the way that you talk about your daughter, and it has full on made me cry before. And Max will like look over at me, but I'm so excited to have you on because I know you're a new dad, but I think you're doing an amazing job, and I hope that you'll be an inspiration to some of the other new dads out there. And hopefully I can help answer any questions you have too about looking into the future of raising your little girl. And yeah, I'm really excited. So would love for you to share a little bit about your background with the military, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no. So I enlisted out of high school. Just always felt a calling to serve, and I've spent 11 years in the Marine Corps, and I was in a bunch of different companies over that time. And throughout that time, just met an incredible group of people. I stood on the shoulders of giants, and have just been very, very grateful for the individuals that I had the opportunity to serve with. But when I got out, at the time I was a machine gunner. I was a section leader, or excuse me, I was a squad leader of machine guns, and was down in a unit that was in Alabama, and I was traveling from Tennessee to Alabama, and we spent some time down in South America. Then right when I got back is when we found out we were pregnant. So there's kind of this moment where we realized things may have to pivot, and we started to reevaluate things, and it was time to settle down and start a family. And my wife and I, she endured so much during the time that I was in the military, and it was just time to jump in with both feet and give it all back to her. And then, with a daughter on the way, just, have all that time to spend and give 100% to the family.
Oh, thank you for providing that context. You really do have an amazing story, and you've given so much to others. And I see that coming through with the way you're raising your daughter as well.
Thank you.
Um, of course. Do you mind talking about maybe how your military background has influenced your parenting style? I know it's still early on, but do you think that you've learned certain skills or direction that you're applying now as a father, or what you might apply in the future?
Yeah, I would say obviously as time goes on and she becomes more of an individual, she turns one in a few days. So, she's nonverbal, she's a little bit mobile. But as far as the grand scheme of things, I think our parenting styles are still developing. We have these philosophies and these ideas of what we want to do. But I think, with me being in the military for just about a third of my life, I have so many experiences from that chapter, and it's going to definitely influence, how I parent. Um, you know, in my time in the service, I definitely, saw some extreme poverty and, extreme evil, and, it's out there, and it's, it really kind of shaped how I view things. And, right now, I think as a country, we're culturally and politically more divisive than, we have been in the past. But also at the same time, we're in an amazing spot in time and history. And, this very grateful to be living in this country and have a lot to appreciate with that. So I think just raising her to appreciate what we have, even if that's just as simple as conserving clean water as it comes out of the faucet and not letting it run. But I mean, it grows from that. It's always being aware of your surroundings and how to move within that environment. I think, there's so many things that are going to that have influenced me from the military that will kind of almost habitually be passed on. It's not what we do for our children, but it's, and it's what we teach them that will make them successful. And I think with that, there's some good lessons. You can learn them outside of the military, but that's just what influenced me. And I think that major influence is going to rub off on her to some degree.
Absolutely, it will. I feel like everyone, there's so many gold nuggets that you just said. Everyone can benefit from hearing that, not only just daughters, but it's an important reminder to be grateful and to not waste. And no, I love all that. Also, you are someone who likes to push your limits. Just that's something that I know about you, both physically and mentally, and someone who's always striving for a challenge and testing yourself. For example, I know your friends fear working out with you because their idea of a workout is more like lifting some weights, and your idea of a workout is more like completing a Murph. But with that in mind, I wanted to know about your feelings when you found out that you were having a daughter. Did you have any fears around parenting a girl?
I wouldn't say fears. I think there's a big undercurrent, especially within my group, my friend group. There was a big undercurrent of like all my friends, obviously being very excited when they found out we were pregnant. And there's just this expectation of you hope it's going to be a boy, right? You hope it's going to be a boy. And I think as men we can relate, there's this idea that we can relate to a son. We can teach him the lessons and the hardships. And we want to pass on, we want to shorten that learning curve for our children. End statement right there. But with sons, we can communicate easier because we speak the same language to that, to that degree. And honestly, when we found out we were pregnant, it was the priority is the safety and the health and security of my wife through the pregnancy and the baby through that, through that term. And then when she, comes out and meets us in the world, you just want a happy, healthy child. That's the important thing. And we can't control, every variable and every factor, but we can just put faith in certain things. And, um, you know, raising a child it's a responsibility unlike any other. And I mean, boy or girl, as long as I'm able to raise a confident, resilient, and happy child, I think that's what success looks like. And I think when you focus on those areas and those aspects, there's less to fear. There's you're kind of putting all your effort and your energy into the productive things, and you're not allowing space for all the things that I think people kind of get a little bit concerned with when they're hearing that they're, mothers having sons or fathers having, daughters. It's because I think it's a communication thing. I think that's right off the bat. Like I know through my experience exactly what it's like to be a young boy and to grow through and become a man. And so I can speak to that, but I don't know about that on the other side. So, there's just concern in what you don't know. And I think you just kind of have to bear down and put your effort and your energy to the things you can control. I don't know if that specifically answered your question, but that's
No, it
that's
did.
my viewpoint on it. I guess I'm sticking with it.
Yeah, it sounds like the answer is no, there was no fears. No, but that sounds very in line with what I know about you as well. But I also think you bring up a good point. Yeah, controlling what you can control again is something that is important for parenting, but also in life. And when it comes to having these fears about raising a daughter or having a child in general, the fears are usually coming from what you can't control. Right. So the more that
Right.
you can pull back and realize, like, okay, all I have to do is focus on what I can control. And that comes into play when it's like, you having a plan in place for how you want to parent and making sure that they're safe to the best of your ability and all these things. And if you can just focus on that, it provides some peace of mind. So I love what you said there, and I think that's really important for people to hear. So I know it's been a short time of being a dad, but do you think being a dad to a daughter or just being a dad in general has changed you as a person thus far?
It definitely has. And I don't know like how much of that is father versus father to a daughter. But yeah, being a parent, it it's tough to explain. It's just like you cross that threshold and you're in a different area than you've ever been in that you could ever imagine being in. And yeah, I mean it definitely kind of shifted my mindset, like where my energy is going, the things I care about, the things that, I need to not care about anymore so I can be more present. And I think, how I conducted myself in all areas of my life changed because even something that wasn't related to my daughter would still have a secondary or tertiary effect on her. If I'm off, training jujitsu, I can't be with my daughter at that time, right? So even if it's something that's like not a negative effect, it still has an effect. And so, yeah, I mean, started kind of reevaluating where I spend my time and how I do things. And I mean, right now, she's just soaking in the world and she's just taking it all in. And that's how she's learning right now. So, how I conduct myself, all those knee jerk reactions, the tone in my voice, and how I speak to strangers, how I speak to my wife, no matter what time of the day or anything like that, like, frustration, anything like that, like she's reading all those cues, even if she's not understanding them. And, we often judge ourselves by our intent and others by their actual actions. And, kind of just flipped the script on that and really started to kind of put more effort into just being present and being a role model. It changed me. It drives me to be a better man in a way that I could never imagine. And it's, I think specifically though for the girl dad portion, I hate to admit it, but I have a soft spot in my heart that I think is way bigger than I would like to say. I
Oh,
I I just have this, uh you're holding a child and you need to protect your child, um, or just a small child. But then, you hold your own, and this is my first, I had my first. And so I don't know the girl versus the boy, difference or anything, but I just know that I would run to the end of the earth and jump off just to, you know, save her, help her, anything. So yeah, I mean, I love her to death, and there's a sweet spot there or a soft spot there that I could never imagine myself having had.
this is the kind of topic or conversation that I was talking about that you would tell to Max and I would be listening and just crying in the background. But no, I love all that. So you mentioned being at jujitsu and that being time away from the daughter. And in the book and in a lot of my speaking engagements, I always talk about the importance of introducing your daughter to your world and inviting her to be a part of the things that you love so that you don't have to have that separation. Obviously, right now, as a not even 1-year-old baby, she's not coming to jujitsu with you, but
Well,
I
I never
do.
said that.
Fair.
She's going with me and
Um,
train.
but I do see you bringing her on hikes with you and Rachel, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of other things you're going to introduce her to. So, what else are you excited to introduce your daughter to?
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, I think like you driving that point home is so important because, and you speaking to it in various capacities and platforms, I don't think that message could be spread enough. It's right now is the phase, and thankfully Rachel and I, my wife and I, we have a similar parenting philosophy, but I think right now we're creating the normal. Like we're creating what she will perceive and kind of fall back on at a habitual stance. And so what we do consistently will become what her normal is. And that's the good and the bad. Take it with a grain of salt. You just have to put your best foot forward and go off of that. But I think we've taken our own hikes. We think it's very important to be outside and push yourself physically. to spend that time outside as a family and overcome obstacles. We go on daily walks and we go on hikes. She's been on a few ruck runs now that we have one of those little packs that she like stands up in the back on, and she loves it. I think I showed you the video at your wedding with her just
Yeah.
kind of bobbing in the back. Um, but strength isn't just physical. It's important to spend time together as a family. And we've gone to football games, we've gone to weddings, we go to the zoo. It's just going out and showing her as much of the world as possible is a part of our responsibility as parents, because that's what's going to allow her to cast that wide net and experience all these different things. And then with that, she'll start to pick up interests. And as time goes on and she grows older, those interests, it's going to be our responsibility to kind of lean into them and give her the opportunity to pursue the things that she wants to do and that she's interested in doing, to learn new skills. And that's also kind of, as this is just me imagining this because we're not there yet in life, but as she starts to figure out what she's interested in, that's my opportunity to step in and create more memories and to help her along that journey, along her journey. So, it's kind of that opening of the door. Like we want to take her camping. It's the weather's been a little bit cold and she's not verbal yet, so we want her to be able to express any concerns that she has before we go, camping in the cold. But as the weather warms up, we're really looking forward to taking her out there and going camping. But like I said, we're an outdoor family, so I understand some people don't, appreciate the outdoors, or want to spend, all the time that they have out there, which is it's totally fine. But the important thing is just finding activities to do as a family. And for us, one of the reasons that drove us to Colorado was the activities that we can do outside. But it's just important to kind of figure out what works for you as a family, and what you guys can do to create more time and show her the world, or your daughter, your child, the world, because that's where the experience comes from, in my opinion. It's
No, you're
it's just
right.
how I see it.
You're right. And I remember you were talking about, I think maybe Rachel was still pregnant at the time, but you were talking about how you were gonna just continue to live the way that you currently live and have your daughter be a part of it.
Hmm.
And I think that's a really important point because not only for the reasons that you just described about, introducing your daughter to the world and having her find interest in different things, but also for your own happiness. Because I think a lot of people, when they become pregnant or they have a child, they give up their entire lives to, help this baby. But really, what they're doing is hurting themselves and preventing the baby from having these amazing experiences that you're describing. And I
Right.
think that happy parents are just generally better parents, right? So
Hmm.
if you can continue to do these things that make you happy and give you life, then absolutely you should. And bringing your daughter to be a part of it just makes it even better. So, yeah,
Oh
I
yeah.
think those are great lessons overall.
Yeah, and it's it sounds so easy up front to just be like, I'm going to dive in and do everything for my kid. But then when you start neglecting yourself, and that's going to have, repercussions. And it's also, is that going to have repercussions on your marriage with your partner? And now there's animosity or there's friction, in between you, and, you're all in the same house, you're all under the same roof. And so it's dynamic. You need to take care of yourself. You need to take care of your relationship with your significant other. And then you also need to take care of your relationship with your children, and I think there's it starts with you and it kind of builds out. And yeah, I think you really nailed it on the head, where it's, you can't jump into just taking care of one person.
Yeah, absolutely. You're really prolific with all these like parenting styles and just seems like you know exactly what you're doing. Have you read any books or like is there any besides mine? But where are you learning this from? Is it mostly by observation from your family or is this just natural to you?
Well, first of all, I read one incredible book, and after that, I didn't have to read another one for afterwards. Um, no, I actually, your book was great, and it gave a lot of insight into just kind of navigating another side. Again, it's like I haven't walked through that threshold, and I don't. know the experience of growing up from a girl into a woman, and you know reading your book really kind of helped illuminate that other side, and it helps kind of, it was a guiding hand to kind of walk through that threshold. um and yeah, I mean, it's like I said earlier, it's just a big responsibility, to take care of a child. And so if we're not putting our effort into putting our best foot forward in that, then I think that's I think there's going to be some regrets later in life, and I just want to live in a way that I don't have any regrets, and I want to enjoy the time that I have with those that I love. And you might as well maximize that. So,
I love it.
again, I appreciate all the confidence that you're throwing out there. Really, I'm over here just running blind, just kind of shooting for the fences, hoping for the best. But it's with a good core group of surrounded by a good core group of people. It makes things a little bit easier. Like they say, it takes a village, and my wife and I physically don't have that village. We've always lived a little bit further away from our family, but we do have an amazing group of friends that surround us. And like, I'll never forget when you guys met her. It's and Max just not knowing how to hold this small little thing that's the size of just barely bigger than his own
Yeah.
hand. It's just
Yeah.
but yeah, no, it's definitely, it's a journey. And um, as long as you surround yourself with the right people, I think it makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, that's fair. I asked because I figured there's dads listening who could, maybe benefit from some of the resources that you've utilized, but it sounds like the resource that I'm hearing over and over is really intention and
Definitely.
mindset. So that's really what it comes down to. I mean, if you put your mind to it that you're going to be a great father and you're going to put in the work and you're going to do the things and you're going to learn and grow, then, the outcome will show. So, um I guess that would be the best resource is looking inwards for all the dads to kind of find what you found to be the best way to parent.
Yeah, just to keep that rolling, like we kind of touched on earlier, like you have to take care of yourself, and then that kind of expands out. And so, it's nobody's perfect, and everyone has things to work on, and you can't hide those imperfections from your children. They will see them, and all you can do is just try and identify them and get ahead of it. Try and self-correct before that one thing that you don't like about yourself starts to influence someone else's life and becomes their internal monologue, or their habitual knee-jerk reaction, whatever it is. And so just really kind of getting that internal core straight, and then from there that kind of emanates out.
Yeah, so true. And you mentioned how your daughter can already pick up on, tone of voice and all these things, and it's so true. The way that you handle yourself and your emotions will have a huge impact on your daughter or child moving forward. So the quicker that you can address those things, the better because it is really important. So yeah, no, props to you for getting ahead of that and being an amazing role model.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I mean, it all started with, we knew we were pregnant, and that was a very exciting moment. And then we found out we were having a daughter, and Rachel had already purchased Girl Dad because she wanted to read it, and I yanked it right out of her hands. And was like, nope, I'm reading this one first. So again, it was that resource, being available was really what guided me through that doorway into this chapter of life. And I can't appreciate and thank you enough for that.
Oh, well, thank you. I swear I did not pay him to say all these nice things about the book, but no, I really appreciate that. Speaking of the book, there's one thing that I talk a lot about, and I speak a lot to this as well, and it's related to work-life balance. I think it's really hard for a lot of dads because there's typically extra pressure put on them to provide for their family, and they want to work hard to make sure that they're in a comfortable position, but also then they're missing out on some of the quote unquote life balance. But I think when it comes to work-life balance, it's not really about a teeter-totter with, work on one side and life on the other and making sure you have enough time spent in each one. It's more about setting goals in each category and feeling fulfilled with your work and your life, and that looks different for everybody. So there's no perfect science to it, but I always like to talk to dads about how they are achieving work-life balance or striving to achieve it and what that means for them. So for you, how are you handling having a job and a little girl at home, and what does that look like right now for you?
Yeah, it's a great question because, like you said, for everyone, it's different. It looks different for everyone, and I mean, so will, fatherhood. It's dynamic, but how do you balance taking care of your family by providing for them and then also being there for your family? Because when you have a 1 year old or 2 year old, 5 year old, they don't recognize that you're gone in order to provide. They just know that you're gone. And that's a really tough thing to navigate. And what I found, and this is what, I found and it works for me. I'm not saying it works for everyone, but just being present and being intentional in that time. So when I go right now, our daughter she's in daycare during the day. And when I go to pick her up, unless it's an absolute end of the world work emergency, my phone is in another room. When she's at home, it's time for us to be together. And when I go to put her down, I will, put her down for the night. I'll take my phone and I'll leave it upstairs. And that way I have uninterrupted time with her to wind down for the day, to make sure she's comfortable, make sure she's feeling safe. And there's nothing interrupting that, even if it's just not even work related. It's just a text message from, a friend, or, a spam call, whatever it is. We've all had that moment where we feel the vibration in our pocket from our phone, and all of a sudden we're in the middle of a conversation. We're thinking outside of that conversation. We're distracted. And so for me, I just found minimizing the distractions is what allows me to be most present with my daughter. And I think that's what really kind of makes the difference in between. And I know that's not really work-life balance. It doesn't specifically answer the question, but I think that's the best piece of advice that I could give on how to navigate work-life balance, because it's 21st century America. Everyone has cell phones, everyone has emails, texts, all that. And so just removing that distraction, because it's a distraction. Nothing's more important than your family. They come first. That's a non-negotiable. And just figuring out how you can put them first in a way that still allows you to keep your job is a pretty big question to answer.
I think you answered that really well, actually, and it does answer the question of work-life balance. It's really not about the amount of hours you spend or minutes that you spend on each
Hmm.
one, but like we talked about earlier, it's really the attention that you have behind it. So,
Oh yeah.
I always say intention and attention when it comes to these things, and so having only an hour with your daughter a day or whatever it may be, even if it's only 30 minutes, if you can put away the distractions, look her in the eyes, make her feel like she's worthy of your time, worthy of your attention, that's going to have way bigger of a difference than, spending more time with them, but not really being there. And they know these, like, even at a young age, they pick up on that. Like, if
Right.
they're feeling wanted or feeling like they're a priority, they understand. So,
Yeah, it's the
um,
quality versus quantity.
absolutely.
As much as I don't want to have only 20 minutes with her, I would love to have 20 minutes with her where it's just us, just focused on whatever it is, having fun together. Her exploring, her being, in the grass, figuring it out, whatnot. But, that's so much better in my mind than having a full day where I'm just on my phone, in front of a computer or TV, for the entire day. Those 24 hours mean nothing if you're not present.
So true. And I also like what you said about removing the distractions because, like you said, we live in the 21st century. The technology is all around us. And so it's almost like knowing yourself when it comes to eating dessert, right? And you just don't buy it. If you're gonna be the one who's like always eating it, just don't have it in the house. And that's kind of the same thing. If your phone's gonna buzz and you're gonna turn and look at it and pull away and be distracted, and you know that about yourself, put it in the other room while you're spending time with your daughter. Like that's such a great idea and it's so simple, but a lot of us it's just natural to have our phones with us or check the text when it comes through or what if it's an important work email?
Mhm.
Well, most things can wait, but your attention, and being distracted when you're with your daughter, that does have an impact later on. So, yeah, just remove the distraction.
Yeah,
Love
and
that.
I mean, it's what's working for me right now. And, she's so far off. Not everyone, but a bunch of people have asked me, what are my thoughts on cell phones with children and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, she's one. So it's not a pertinent conversation right now. But, thinking further down the road when she's a teenager and we're at the dinner table, do I want her to be on her phone while we're eating dinner and we have that little window of time together? Or would I prefer that we're able to converse and I can catch up and see what she did that day, what her best parts of the day were? If she's, struggling in a certain area of life, have it be academics or her social life or sports or whatever it is. But, I would much rather have that conversation and be able to have that conversation. And that starts with me and that starts now. That starts with,
Mhm.
you know, giving her the attention and not being on the phone because again she's going to see everything I do. She sees it all. There's no hiding from your kids. They know the good, the bad, the ugly. So if I'm able to kind of just show her by example that we don't need to be attached to our phone all the time, then again that becomes her normal. And I think that's just really, I know I'm kind of like going in circles right now, but that's what grounds me is just understanding that um we are creating her inner monologue. We are creating her habits. We're creating what she sees the world to be and her perception of it. And, the more experiences we can give to her and the more we can really incentivize her building confidence, in who she is, then I think that's what leads to a happier and more fulfilling and rich life.
Absolutely. And I think there's two really positive outcomes that come from this kind of thing that are indirectly related. So the first
Hmm.
one is the way that she will eventually um, be protecting herself from social media. So, what I mean by that is the more that you give her these experiences outside of the home and have her be introduced to the world and not the phone, then when it comes to things like jealousy on Instagram, it doesn't affect her as much because she'll see all these other girls out there who are doing this and that or who look this and that way, but it doesn't affect her because she kind of has like a force field around her of knowing who she is, knowing what she cares about, and it's just kind of like, oh, it's social media, and it doesn't have the same effect that it does when kids see their parents on social media all the time and it's part of their life and it's something that they're
Hmm.
really driven by, then they kind of feel like this pressure to also be this way, and then it can have a negative effect without them realizing it. So I think that's really important that you're doing that. And then also, the second kind of indirect effect of that is when it comes to dating and just setting the bar for how she should be treated. Because by putting distractions away and making her feel valued and worth your time, what you're doing is you're raising the bar to make sure that anyone who wants to, eventually court her or whatever does the same. And she's not going to put up with partners who like do not value her time or who are distracted when she's talking because that's not the experience that she's used to. And like you said, you're creating her reality. And so if that's her reality, then she'll recognize immediately that that's not what's right for her and she's worth more than that. And so it's just amazing that you're doing that even at such a young age, but you're setting that foundation up really
Hmm.
nicely for her.
I've never looked at it in that light, but as you say it, I mean, you're right. I mean, that's 100% accurate. And isn't that what we all want, for ourselves and for our kids, though, for our children, is to just be able to be grounded and be happy and spend time with those that truly care about us, and us be able to kind of set those boundaries and filter the people that don't care about us out. It's like, isn't that kind of what we're all striving for, is to just be happy and live a rich life, a fulfilling
Absolutely.
life. So yeah.
Yeah, no, it is amazing. And Max took me backpacking in July, and
Mhm.
I don't even know the last time I've gone with no phones, no Wi-Fi, nothing. And it was the most blissful, peaceful, amazing experience. And I'm just can't wait till I go back out next because you don't really get that. Even if you try to be off your phone or, put it away, like you mentioned, we just live in a world where technology is all around us. And so, yeah, I think that it's amazing that you can find ways to put it away and be present and just to teach your daughter those values so that she's set up really nicely for her own confidence and understanding of her own self-worth. And no, it's just, yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, no, appreciate it. And honestly, I'm surprised you had a good time out in the wilderness because Max was there. I figured you would really want to decompress and get away from your phone and all the other distractions in life. But no, I remember him telling me about that trip, and it sounded absolutely incredible. And I'm very glad you had the ability to go out and do that with him because, it's you also got to see a little bit of what we were trying to get at. So appreciate you going out and scouting out the area before we
Yeah,
went
no
out
worries.
there.
uh, okay, so, you're almost a year in, but would love to just hear about your favorite memory so far with your daughter.
That's a really tough one because, I feel like every day there's just something else. There's just like there's another memory. Oh man, I mean, she's just taking in so much of the world right now, and it's incredible to see. It's incredible to be a part of. Um, right now she's in that babbling phase where she's just trying to, figure out words, and she's not speaking yet. She knows dada, she knows mama. And it's great to hear those, but it's just so much fun to just have a conversation where it's just pure nonsense and we're just goofing around, and she's just figuring out how to make different noises for the first time, and she'll crack herself up because of it, and it's like we're over there just dying laughing because, again, this is all new to her, and it's incredible to experience things through the eyes of a child. And, it's something that's so mundane and, could be boring to us, or just, it's almost a headache or it's a chore, is now like this exciting experience, and, it's tough to pinpoint one thing. I know it's not going to last forever. Um, but at the end of the day, just kind of winding down and, rocking her to sleep, and, she just falls asleep on my chest. And it's just that moment where everything is so peaceful and she's at peace, and it's almost like emanating through her into me. And I love that right now, and I truly appreciate it because, again, I know that's not going to last forever. I know that's a chapter. And as excited as I am for, the next chapter of her life, I'll have to lose something from this chapter in order for her to gain that. And I'm not saying that to be, sad or depressing, but, you want the best, but also you're going to lose these other things, these tiny little things will be lost. So I think it's important to recognize that so that they can be appreciated truly for what they are. Um, and you know, that's as I'm thinking about this, I'm like, there's more and more
Hmm.
examples. When we go backpacking and she's in that little, kid's backpack that she can stand up and see the world from behind me. She can't walk yet, so it's honestly just a really cool and exciting thing to be her legs, to just take her out and find and explore these beautiful areas, of the world, and just we'll be walking down a trail and she's grabbing onto the pine needles, or, like just excited, slapping, my shoulder, trying to get me to go faster or whatever it is, there's uh it's just so much fun to do that together, to be a part of that together. And I mean, it's she's at a phase where every day she's just kind of like picking something up or learning something. And yeah, I think ultimately, like, that's my favorite memory right now is just being able to hold her and take her out and, experience the world. And I know that's not like necessarily like one exact point in time, but it's something that I truly appreciate. And, again, it's not going to last forever, so I just really want to enjoy it while I can.
Absolutely. No, that's so special and makes me very excited to give her a friend one day.
Well, we're all looking forward to
Yeah. Maybe not Max. He is, but just, we just got married, so.
there's there's some time to
Yeah,
have.
yeah,
Again,
exactly.
speaking of chapters of life, though, I mean, everything changed, and
Hmm.
I being on this side of things, like, absolutely loved the aspect of being a father, and watching my wife be a mother is incredible. But there was, a little bit more freedom, and there was, a little bit more ability to just kind of drop, on the drop of a dime, just be like, let's go do this. And there's no other concerns, So
Hmm.
the pre-child phase was also definitely a chapter that it's different, but it wasn't bad, or worse. Don't rush through it. Enjoy it. Enjoy the time that you have with just Max to really foster that, and get to where you want to be before everything changes. And again, it's up and to the right.
Yeah, absolutely. I know you're obviously a very new or newish dad, and this is your first child. So I would love to talk a little bit more about the pregnancy experience because it's not like you just wake up one day and you're a dad, right? There's months of highs and lows and lots of challenges when it comes to pregnancy, typically. So I'm sure the other dads listening would also love to hear about this because it's not like you have to physically deal with the pregnancy, but it's you're dealing with having a newborn and being a husband to a pregnant wife, and would just love to hear about how you've been able to support Rachel during the pregnancy and after the pregnancy.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I had the easy part. Rachel's the one that did all the work. Um, but I mean, our relationship, Rachel and I, it's never really 50-50, and I think that was really driven home during the pregnancy. Some days I'm carrying the water and other days she's the one supporting me. And during the pregnancy, it was an incredible opportunity to take even more care of her because there were just certain things that she couldn't do, she shouldn't do, or, she's having a tough time, or, things are changing and things are growing. And it was nice to be able to help her out in that time because she had her own job and she had her own things going on, and her job was to take care of her body so that she was taking care of our daughter. um, and just being able to aid in that was incredible. As we kind of kept going through the pregnancy and got closer to delivery, we started to develop a birth plan, and with that we also started taking some classes. And Rachel wanted to do a natural birth, and she wanted to take that challenge on. And so then it became, how are we going to prepare for this challenge? The Spartans saw only men who died in battle would get gravestones, and the women would get gravestones if they died during childbirth. And they saw it as a form of battle, which, after witnessing it, it is a form of battle. No, it's very traumatic, but it's very beautiful in its own right. And you know, taking on the task of a natural birth, I mean, there was a lot of emotional support. And we read a book. I think it was The Birth Partner, and I'll have to get the author for you, but it was written by a midwife, so she had plenty of experience on that side of things. And I basically just had a running list of like what's going to the hospital for the labor, or what's like, what are we going to have on hand for the labor? What are we going to have at the hospital for the birthing portion of it? And then separate from that, we have the recovery portion. And, it's just this ever going list of things that could make her experience that much more enjoyable. So not the right word, so far off from the right word, but or easier wouldn't even be the
Yeah.
right word either. But just something that could help take her out of that moment and give her some comfort, or give her a distraction from what she was, in mid contraction, the pain that she was in. And just finding little things that, throughout the day, and throughout throughout the day, to make her life easier, and then throughout the birth itself to make that easier. It was just kind of where I put my focus. And then obviously, there's the preparing of the nursery and all that stuff, which makes it a little bit more real from my standpoint. Because, as soon as we're pregnant, Rachel's, they're experiencing being a mother. Maybe not traditionally with, you nurturing her outside of the body, but she's nurturing her within. And, it was so much more tangible for her. And, for me, it wasn't really there until our daughter got a little bit older inside the womb and started kicking, and, things like that. And then, preparing the house for what it was going to look like post birth, to make things easier for my wife, as well as, building the things that my daughter would need, like the crib and all that. So, um, yeah, I mean, it's kind of, again, it's just never 50-50. It's always kind of a give and take, and just figuring out where that void is, like what needs to be done, what needs to be taken care of, and then just, inserting yourself into that to make her life a little bit easier, because all of her energy is, it's wild the amount of energy that it takes. I think when she was breastfeeding, it was 50%. She needed to increase her calories by 50% just because that was what was going through the milk.
Oh my gosh.
So, I mean, it's like it's a full-on job, and it knocked her off her feet. She did a great job. I'm not saying anything negative about that, but it's so demanding that it really took it out of her. And she was an active individual. She lifted a lot, and we were always doing things outside together, and it really just zapped her energy level. But again, she's growing another human and she's feeding another human. Like it all makes sense. But it can get tough if you expect things to stay the same, because things aren't going to stay the same. Things are changing, and you need to change with them and get ahead of that and stay ahead of it, in order to, make it an easier and better experience for everyone.
No, I think that's so important. And I really like it's never 50-50. Because I think, yeah, of course that's true, especially in pregnancy, but it's an important thing to remember for everyone throughout relationships, because it's it really is never 50-50. And the more that people are keeping tabs and, jabbing each other like, oh, well, I did this, then, you should do this or whatever, it'll disrupt the relationship rather than keep it cohesive and, more of like a team approach, which it sounds
Hmm.
like you guys definitely have. And I think that's a great way to go about it. Even as you grow a family, it's like it becomes a team, right? And I think, yeah, the way that you're going about everything just seems very, it's like hyper focused, but also you have a lot of personal accountability. And I think that's really important as a new dad, as a husband, as a dad of three, for everyone to just have, and as a woman too, as a wife, but the more people can be accountable for themselves and for their partners and just contribute to the relationship, I think, yeah, it just works better in the end. So, love to
Yeah, I think
hear.
I think a
Yeah,
lot of the core values that are important aren't, for a girl or for a boy.
absolutely.
It's just these are, this is the human experience, and these are the traits that will help push people forward versus pull them back. And it doesn't matter girl or boy, it's, our job to just pass that along. And yeah, I mean, you summed it up perfectly. I don't even know why I keep on running my mouth.
No, you are giving amazing pieces of advice, and I think that there's just a lot of insight here. So actually to close out, I would love if you could just share one piece of advice that you would give to other new dads, even though you've been sprinkling advice this entire time. But is there one thing that comes to mind if you could share with other new dads?
I like what sticks out to me the most is everyone says it. You hear it from all angles. Time flies, it's always some variation. Time flies now, enjoy it while you can, and it really does. They're not wrong. You're hearing it from everyone because it's so accurate. And, we're not trying to trade today for tomorrow, because A, it's never guaranteed, but also, like I said earlier, if she's if when she starts walking, she'll never crawl again, right? Because why would you crawl? So the moment when I open the door and she picks her heads up and recognizes that it's me, and then she puts her head down, and she just moves her little body as fast as she can, and she just motors over, like that will be gone when she starts to walk. So as excited as that is, we lose something that's exciting, today for that. So we don't want to wish away today for whatever, you're looking for down the road. And I think something that I picked up, and I'm so glad that I did it, and this is why I would put it out there as advice, is just journaling and just writing about the experience of, what you guys did that day, things that, are she picked up on, or, whatever it is. Because honestly, the greatest gift that I feel like I gave myself was the ability to go back and reread these days. And most of the time too, like it wasn't even like I completely forgot about it. Had it be through just the passage of time or the exhaustion or the excitement in the moment, or just it was a day that was filled with, too many things to remember that one thing. And just going back and being able to read, about her growth and almost transported back into that moment when she was a 2 month old, when she was a 6 month old. It's really been exciting to be able to do that. And it kind of flips everything on its side too, because now I'm actually seeing that, she is older, and I did trade so some certain things like her ability when she couldn't roll or anything like that. You could just put her on her chest and she'd just sit there, and so we lost that. And now she's crawling all over you. And I'm not saying that like that's a negative thing, but it's just those moments in time, those chapters, they all close. It's only a matter of time before they do and they pass. And just being able to write that down and have a record of it to go back and review. And there's more to it. I mean, obviously, there's huge benefits to journaling and all that, but that's just what I found was the ability to go back and see that and relive those chapters, those small little micro chapters. Because again, she's not even a year old yet, but
Hmm.
you'd be amazed at how much I just didn't even realize I forgot. And it wasn't through getting hit in the head so many times. It was just from there's so many things happened during this time period. There's so much growth in such a short period of time. You can't remember it all. And so I really am glad that around her birth, I started to write things down and be able to recall that.
I love that idea. I also think that, a lot of people say it goes really fast and all of that, but the advice is then to be present and to enjoy the
Mhm.
moment, right? Not, they usually don't say write it down. And I think, like you said, it's so important because you can be as present as you want or really enjoying the moment, but it's harder to reflect on that. But when you have a written diary of exactly what happened or how it made you feel, it's really fun to reflect on those memories. And yeah, I love that so much. I actually do a yearly kind of present for Max, and it's all of our memories throughout the year. And it's so fun to look back at those. I have been doing it since we first started dating, which at first might have been a little aggressive, but he liked it. And now it's really fun to look back at those because yeah, it was, 5 years ago and we went to Costa Rica and like, oh yeah, I can remember that trip. But looking through those journal entries, it's like so special. And I can only imagine what it's like looking back on the journal entries of having a new child and all these new memories. It's yeah, amazing. So love that advice. Thank you so much for everything that you've given to this conversation and all the advice you've shared. I think dads will find this to be really valuable. And I just appreciate your time and you being here. So thank you, Carmine.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, thank you so much for just inviting me to be on, and had a great time speaking with you. And I hope something sticks. And and even if the advice that I've been giving isn't for for someone, I hope that it still opens a conversation or a thought that kind of can lead to what works for them. And that's just one of the incredible things about what you're doing is you're starting these conversations, and you're starting you know the you're creating a platform for people to discuss the things that really do need to be discussed, because this is the future. I mean, this is us raising these children. They're going to be the ones that push forward, and it's our job to kind of embed the principles and the traits that we think are most important. So everyone hopes they're doing the best job. I hope I'm doing the best job that I can, but I'm just so glad that you are out there as a resource, because your book and the podcast and all that, it's a huge help. It's a massive help. So thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Oh, thank you, Carmine.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for tuning in to Girl Dad, the podcast. If you found today's conversation helpful, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a fellow girl dad. I read every review and truly take your words to heart. To close out, remember, your intentional moments make lasting legacies. See you next week.